Hi everyone, welcome to another Richard Brind video. Today I'm going to be talking about a yoga and meditation retreat that I went on this weekend. I made a few notes about it here, so you might see me referring to these notes every so often. So on Friday I met up with a good friend of mine in London. We spent a couple of hours there sort of around Victoria Coach Station, and then we headed towards Bethnal Green, which is where a coach was picking us up from the London Buddhist Centre, who had organised the retreat. You don't have to be a Buddhist to go on it. Neither of us are practicing Buddhism, but I guess it helps. But we're definitely, both quite open-minded, and we're both very keen to see what this kind of thing is all about. It's very, very intense compared to 10 minutes yoga and meditation a day, so it's a nice sort of challenge. So we arrived late. There was a problem on the motorway. There was some traffic accident. We arrived at Potash Farm, which is in Walsham Willows in Suffolk. Beautiful place. There's like a more traditional old-style farmhouse, but then there's also the complex that we were staying in that's been there for a couple of years. The farm itself, just from what I can tell, just grows vegetation, so there's no animals, therefore there's no fences. The fields are wide open, so you can just wander around the massive fields that this complex opens out onto, and that is in itself was quite an amazing part of the weekend. So we got there for supper. The diet for the weekend was a vegan diet, and so we got there. It was jacket potato, bit of salad. I just stuck with the jacket potato. I don't tend to eat too much too late in the evening. I'd already let them know about my recent health problems, and they very kindly took me through to meet the chef, and he talked me through the recipes that he was preparing for the next day. He was preparing a vegetable curry, and so he took me through the ingredients and says, right, what can you have, what can't you have? And he made one especially for me, and that was great to be taken into consideration in that way. So we had an evening ceremony, an evening ritual to sort of introduce ourselves to the key themes of the weekend, if you like. We were reciting a mantra for most of this ceremony. The mantra was Sabe Sata Suki Hontu. This loosely translates to "May all beings be happy." So we recited that. We were invited to go up and light some candles and think of friends and family members who we'd like to send out love and kindness to. So that was the first night. We got to our rooms. My friend had observed that there were no locks on the rooms. So obviously there's a big trust there that needs to be placed in the community of people that we're staying in. And luckily that trust wasn't misplaced. It was all very, very, people kept themselves to themselves when it came to go to sleep. So woke up in the morning, 6:30, there was a bell that went. Hadn't slept particularly well, so I was kind of apprehensive about what was going to happen the day forth. Because of my health issues again, I'd informed them that there might be some physical restrictions on me for the yoga class. Luckily there was a beginner class that I could attend, and my friend went to that as well, being a beginner himself. That was fairly easy going. We had a little bit of a break after that, and following on from that there was a meditation class. Now the meditation class focused on something that I was not aware of before in meditation. This is a practice called Metta Bhavana. What Metta Bhavana is, it loosely translates to developing kindness. So there are 5 stages to this type of meditation. Once you've been introduced to it, you tend to spend 5 minutes on each of those stages. And so the first stage of it is where you send kindness to yourself. This is kind of seen as the most important part, because if you don't send kindness to yourself, how can you send kindness to others and mean it? Then you get to stage 2, which is thinking of a friend. I interpret that to mean a family member as well. 3 is you send it out to a neutral person. This could be like a neighbour or somebody, someone who serves you in the shop. Number 4 they call the enemy, which obviously doesn't have to be someone you absolutely hate with a passion, but it could be someone who annoyed you recently and just someone who you can send that, kindness to through your practice. Stage 5 is about bringing all of that together and sending kindness to the world, the universe. And that was a very interesting thing to be introduced to, and that was something that we practiced a couple of times over the course of the Saturday. I just look through my little notes here. Yeah, so we observed that the practice of Metta Bhavana throughout the day. We were given an exercise where we were sat opposite a partner, and we had to look into that person's eyes, and it had to be someone we didn't know. And it was quite awkward at first. I particularly was shuffling a little bit, adjusting my glasses, doing all that kind of thing. It's quite difficult to be watched when you're doing nothing, especially if you're from a performance background like myself. I'd like to have someone watch me playing guitar, but doing nothing, it's rather odd. But we did it a few times so we could get used to it, and we recited a different mantra for this as well. It's called "May I be well, may you be well." Basically, this was bounced back and forth between us. So I, for instance, would say, "May I be well." The person I was paired with would say, "May you be well," and then we'd swap over. We repeated it over and over and over again. And the trick there is obviously to make sure that you don't, in the words of the teacher, that you don't dramatize it, that you don't turn it into some kind of performance, some kind of drama class. And that's quite interesting as well, because it's very difficult not to place emphasis on one word over the other. It's a challenge, and like anything about the weekend itself, it feels weird at first, but you kind of realize after a while it just becomes normal, and it becomes part of the practice, part of the weekend. So classes continued throughout the evening in the Metta Bhavana practice. Again, we did our evening ceremony, Sabe Sata Sukhi Hantu, and did a bit of yoga. And from 9 p.m. on the Saturday night, we observed a silence. And we observed this silence to 11 a.m. on the Sunday morning. Nobody spoke a word on the entire... Well, I tell a lie. A couple of guys in the morning, when I saw them, they broke their silence there, because it is hard to remember to keep the silence. But we all managed to keep it fairly well. I went to the yoga class in the morning. Was a bit more awake, a bit more alert this time. Had slept better. The night before I'd got very groggy and almost got a little bit impatient and a bit unfocused. And was starting to think, I'm kind of gonna come out of this weekend with a love-hate point of view. But when it got to the Sunday morning, I was a bit more focused, a bit more relaxed. Took a bit of a back seat in the yoga class because they were doing sun salutations, which I kind of find a little bit difficult, to be honest with you. And, with a stoma, a lot of the exercises were lying on your stomach. And so that's obviously something that I kind of wanted to pull back on. And throughout the weekend, I'd been pulling back on anything that had caused me any sort of discomfort. So we did that. We did the yoga class. We had a little break as before the meditation. And in that little break, I made myself a coffee, got myself some biscuits, sat in the lounge, looked out the window. The bell went for the meditation. I'd not finished my drink and my biscuits, so I thought, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to finish these. Everyone filed off. And it was, I've got to tell you, this incredible moment when I was just sat there on my own, looking out of these double doors. I say double doors, there were several glass doors, looking out onto the farmland. The trees were perfectly still. There was no wind, no breeze, no sun or blue sky to distract you from what you were looking at. You could just take in the bigger picture. No birds tweeting. Behind me, there was no hum of a fridge, no sound of a coffee maker. There was obviously no TV, phone, internet, radio, none of that on the retreat. And there was this moment, as I said, a beautiful moment, complete silence all around me. And that's something that I'm really keeping hold of from the weekend, because it's so rare that you get to experience something like that. And that's just about a minute and a half, 2 minutes of that I experienced before going to meditation